Everyone knows about the Mongols, but very few people actually know a lot about their religion. So the Mongols are the most well known for their brutal conquests of Europe, Asia and the Middle East. Under Genghis Khan alone, they killed 40 million people, which was at that time 10% of the entire population. So you might be justified in thinking that these people were just godless barbarians. But the truth behind the religion is actually quite surprising. In early antiquity, or at least early antiquity, in the Eurasian steppe and especially in Central Asia in the steppe, the nomadic tribes living there, they all formed a shared religious framework. This shared religion was Tengrism, and Tengrism would become the dominant religion of the Mongolian and Turkic tribes living in Central Asia from, as I said, early antiquity right up until the conquest of Genghis Khan in the 13th century. But it was not just the Turkic and Mongolian tribes in the Asian steppe that followed the religion of Tengrism. It was also the Bulgars, the Tatars and the Huns. Why did all these people follow the same religion? Well, Tengrism is a religion that was very much founded by what the people saw around them in the steppe. What these people saw in the steppe was the basis for everything in this religion of Tengrism. So now, what is Tengrism exactly? Well, Tengrism is a hard nut to crack. Tengrism has elements of paganism, monotheistic religions, polytheistic religions, ancestor worship, shamanism, totemism, and animism. So it's a mix of almost everything. At the very basis of Tengrism, you have Tengri, which is their supreme god. So at this point, we have to make the comparison to other pagan religions, other pagan cultures like the Romans and the Greeks and the Norse. So for Western audiences, these are the most well-known paganistic religions with their own pantheon of gods. In the pantheons of the Romans and the Greeks, every god has a human-like personification. This was not the case with Tengrism. With Tengrism, they did have a chief deity, like Zeus for the Greeks, for example, but in Tengrism, the chief deity Tengri is not an actual human. It does not have a human form. It is more of an abstract concept. Though Tengri, the chief deity, is representative of the sky, the clear blue sky above us. And why is this? Because as I said, the religion is very much formed by everything that these tribes saw around them. And in the Asian steppes, the thing that is always present, even when there's nothing else, is the clear blue sky above them. So that's why Tengri, the blue sky above them, is seen as the creator of all. Apart from Tengri, their chief deity, they did also have other gods. But just like their chief deity Tengri, all of these other gods, they are representative of natural elements without having a human-like form, unlike the pantheons of the Greeks and the Romans. So this sets apart the paganistic element of Tengrism from the more mainstream paganism that we know in the West, like from the Norse and the Greeks. As I said, nature is the central element in Tengrism. This is represented in many ways, and one of them is also the worship of animals. And of course, Mongolian culture is synonymous with horses, and so horses are the most important animal that are worshipped within the culture of Tengrism for the Mongols. And this brings us to the next element of the Tengrism religion of the Mongols, which is Animism. Not anime, we're in Mongolia, not Japan, but animism. And what is animism? Animism is when you worship, when you religiously worship and you give non-living things a spiritual essence. So for the Mongolians, everything that they saw around them had a spiritual essence. So trees who do live, but also rocks, lakes, everything they saw had something spiritual in them. And it is also related to the next part that is very important in religion, which is ancestor worship. Ancestor worship is also a very important part of Tengrism. So again, this is another religious element that is part of this larger framework for the Mongolians. And that brings us to another element of their religion, which is shamanism. Shamanism is the belief in nature. So at first sight, it very much looks like Tengrism is a shamanistic belief, which it partially is. They do worship nature in all its elements. But what sets it apart from true shamanistic religions is that the actual shaman who performs rituals, who is a sort of religious figure, only plays a very small role in Tengrism. Tengrism is in many ways not really just a religion, but also a philosophy, and this takes away the power of central figures in the religion itself. So yes, they did have shamans who performed rituals, but they had a very small role in the religion itself, which sets it apart from actual shamanistic beliefs. Also in shamanism, they do worship nature, but again in Tengrism they link gods to the natural elements, which also sets it apart from pure shamanism. Something that is present in almost all religions is the concept of having a soul. And so the question is, did the Mongolians and Tengrism in general believe in souls? The short answer is yes, they did believe in souls, but the answer is far more nuanced. Just like in the Abrahamistic religions like Christianity and Islam, there is a god above you, of course Tengri, who watches everyone in nature. He watches everyone, but the punishment aspect is different from the concept of heaven and hell that we know from the Abrahamistic religions. When someone lives a bad life in Christianity, for example, you get punished and you get sent to hell for all of eternity. This is different in Tengrism. When Tengri is watching you, it is also seen as looking over you, watching out for you. And when Tengri observes your behavior, he can still think, okay, you lived a bad life. So when you commit crimes, when you commit asocial behavior, you do get punished for it. Tengri, when you die, does send your soul to the underworld. But when you go to the underworld, you are there to serve a sentence, like a prison sentence. When Tengri thinks that you served your sentence, you actually return to the earth, you get reincarnated, and so you always get new chances. There is no eternal hell or eternal heaven where your soul will dwell forever. So this concept is very different in Tengrism, and this sets it again apart from monotheistic religions like Christianity or Islam. Something that I also want to touch upon is that this aspect of spiritual reincarnation might also explain why the Mongols were so brutal in their conquest and killing. When they behave like this, both for themselves and the people they killed, they know that everyone, their souls, they go first to the underworld, but they will always come back. This is one of the reasons that explains how brutal they were. There are many other reasons. One of the others being that the living conditions on the Asian steppe were very harsh, and that they often saw people more in the same sense as animals. So as I said, they worship humans, ancestors, animals. Everyone carries spiritual essence. So killing humans for them is not that different as killing animals. But that's very simplified. And now we are getting into one of the more surprising parts of this video, which is religious tolerance. Why so surprising? Well, as I said, and everyone knows, the Mongols are very well known for their brutal conquests, genocidal conquests of other peoples. Yet, their religious tolerance was extremely high, and this has different reasons. The first reason for this religious tolerance is that in Tengrism, the religion of the Mongols and all these nomadic peoples, there is no scripture, there is no central scripture that sets the religion in stone, like the Quran or the Bible. This makes it very different in the way that Tengrism is actually, in a lot of ways, just like Buddhism, a life philosophy instead of a religion in the strict sense. This can also be seen in other elements like the absence of authoritative figures like a priest, a pope, an imam, like we see in the biggest monotheistic religions today. So this creates a more relaxed atmosphere towards other religions, because when it's more of a life philosophy than an actual dogma in the religion, it is easier to incorporate other elements of other religions into your own religious culture. And the second reason for the high religious tolerance can be associated with Genghis Khan himself. So when Genghis Khan first conquered all of the Turkic and Mongolian tribes in Central Asia, he had to unite them under one banner. He had to unite them, and also their different cultural aspects, they had to be reconciliated in his new empire. So he introduced a new justice system. This was called the Yasa justice system, and at the very core, this Yasa justice system, it was a meritocracy. What is a meritocracy? It means that your current social status, rank or wealth does not determine where you will get in life in the future. You can get opportunities even when you are poor right now. And so this system was created to create harmony among all the different tribes of Turkic and Mongolian origin, which almost all followed Tengrism, but this also created a very relaxed atmosphere again, and a very pragmatic approach towards other cultures, and of course other religions in Genghis Khan's bigger empire. So when Genghis Khan, after conquering the Asian steppe, when he also conquered the rest of Asia, Europe and the Middle East, this meant that this pragmatic approach to culture and religion, it meant that the ruling elite of the Mongolians, they very often converted to the local religions. So that meant that in the Eurasian steppe, more in the north and in the west towards Europe and the Caucasus, here the Mongolian elite, they converted to Christianity. And in Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, and the Middle East, they converted to Islam. In this way, the Mongolians who settled in the Middle East and these regions, they actually followed closely in the footsteps of their cultural and geographical neighbors, the Turks. So when the Turks in the 11th century, when they migrated from the Asian steppe to modern-day Turkey, Anatolia and the Middle East, they also converted to Islam, and they even became the dominant Islamic force in the region when they founded the Seljuk Empire. The very same thing happened with the Mongols. When they reached Anatolia and the Middle East, they also converted to Islam, and then in turn they became the dominant force in the region. So when the Mongols converted to Islam in the Middle East, they also made the spread of Islam possible further up in Asia itself, towards Central Asia. And so when the people of countries like Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan, when they got Islamized in these regions, Islam very much became mixed in with Tengrism and rituals of Tengrism itself, which is something you can still see in the culture of these countries today. This is again in contrast with the Mongols who were closer geographically towards Europe. So the Mongols who moved more towards current-day Russia and the Caucasus, they got Christianized, and it went even as far that these Christianized Mongols, they tried to make alliances and try to marry within European nobility to create an alliance to counter the Muslim Arabs in the Middle East. So it is a very strange situation where some of the Mongols got Christianized, some of the Mongols got Islamized, yet these Christian Mongols, they tried to unite with European forces to fight off the Muslim Arabs in the Middle East. At this point in my video, Genghis Khan again takes on a major role, but this time sadly about the downfall of Tengrism in Mongolia. As I said, the Mongols were very religiously tolerant, and this also meant that other religions were spread within the Mongolian Empire. One of them is Buddhism. So Buddhism, after the conquest of the Mongols, it became the dominant religion very slowly in Mongolia and eventually took over Tengrism. Tengrism is still a part of modern day Mongolian culture, but Buddhism is the largest current religion. Another thing I want to mention about modern day Mongolia and religion is that in its recent history there was also a moment of state enforced atheism under the communist government. During this period of state enforced atheism, the communist government, they killed a lot of Buddhists. I have to look up the number, but they massively killed Buddhists, and this did reduce the amount of Buddhists in the country. But yet at this point again, Buddhism is the largest religion in the country. This is the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching. If you found it interesting, maybe subscribe or watch one of my other videos. Thank you very much.